After weeks of witness testimony about him, the jury finally hearing directly from Alec Murdaugh in his own words.
I did lie to them.
Under oath, Murdaugh admitting he misled investigators about being at the crime scene just minutes before his wife Maggie and son Paul were brutally murdered. Murdaugh blaming an opioid addiction, which he says made him paranoid and distrust in state authorities.
Once I lied, I continued to lie.
But through hours of tearful testimony, often referring to his son by the nickname Paul, he maintained he had nothing to do with the murders.
I did not kill Maggie. I did not kill Paul. I would never hurt Maggie, and I would never hurt Paul. Ever. Under any circumstances.
Murdaugh also admitting that during the investigation into the murders and into his alleged financial crimes, he tried to hire his cousin in a botched hit job to cash in on $12 million in life insurance.
What was the end goal that you wanted to accomplish?
I meant for him to shoot me so I'd be gone.
On cross-examination, the state quickly targeting his earlier admission on the witness stand of being at the kennels the night of the murders.
All this time later, this is the first time you've ever said that.
Yes, sir.
Prosecutors trying to establish Murdaugh as a member of an elite family who used his standing in the community, including carrying a badge with him, to get favorable treatment from law enforcement. They also accused him of stealing millions of dollars from former clients to fuel a wealthy lifestyle.
I stole money that was not my money. I misled people that I shouldn't have misled, and I did wrong.
How many times have you practiced that answer before your testimony today?
Prosecutors who've said Murdaugh's motive for murder was an attempt to cover up those financial crimes, appearing to be frustrated by his repeatedly vague responses.
You can't tell us one conversation you had with any of these people when you looked them in the eye and convinced them that you were doing them right, that you were telling the truth.
That's not true, Mr. Waters.
When trial resumes, Murdaugh will be back on the stand for cross-examination. We expect that could take several more hours today. The defense say they have 2 or 3 more witnesses before they rest their case. Savannah?
All right, Catie, back at the courthouse. Thank you. Let's bring in NBC's senior legal correspondent, Laura Jarrett. Laura, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
It's always a wow. I mean, when the defendant takes the witness stand, it's extremely risky. It kind of converts the case to a one-witness case. They either believe him or they don't believe him.
Right.
How did he do? Is this paying off?
For days, you and I have talked about what an enormous gamble this would be, and I think so far, and I want to qualify it as so far, he has been quite compelling. He was emotional when he was talking about the murders, and he also managed to clear up a lot of the weird inconsistencies that the jury has heard so much about. He was able to tackle it, because what is the first rule? As a defense attorney, if your client's going to insist upon testifying, as we by all accounts think that he did, you get out the bad facts on direct examination so that the cross-examination sort of loses some of its impact. And I think that's what the strategy was.
I mean, they did it almost right away to get ahead of those bad facts. The worst fact for him, of course, is that, as he has now acknowledged, he was lying to police, to his family, to investigators, to his own lawyers about whether or not he was at the scene of the crime moments before the murder. What did you think of his explanation for why he lied?
The idea that he was paranoid and that it had to do with his drug use, I think that's going to be an interesting credibility determination for this jury to make. But I think he had to admit at least to the lie, because if he had tried to obfuscate or just sort of shred the truth on that a little bit, I think there were too many witnesses who had placed him at the scene of the crime. He couldn't get around it. He had to admit it. I think blaming it on the drugs, again, we'll see whether that works. But, you know, this jury, as all of us probably have some in our life who has suffered from substance abuse, it may not be a knock against him. The jury may find that sympathetic. The jury may be actually find that completely credible.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the jury, because, you know, if nothing else, for someone to come and tell their story in their own words, being questioned by their own lawyer, it's humanizing. Yeah. And here he is talking about Papa and Mags and the family. There's word that some of the jurors seemed openly moved by this, one even in tears.
Yeah, it's hard because at home, you know, certainly on social media, some people might have found it was too folksy, too scripted. At least based on what we know from the pool reports in the courtroom, jurors were wiping away tears. They passed him a tissue. Now, maybe it's just Southern hospitality to pass someone a tissue, but if they're moved so much for tears, that's not a good sign for the prosecution, and it's a sign that they may find him sympathetic.
The prosecutors have just started their cross-examination. cross-examination. I mean, this is it for them. So how do you think it's going so far? What do they need to do today?
They need to get to the point. They allowed the jury to go home yesterday after 2 hours of cross-examination, not a peep about the murders. That's a head-scratcher, I think. Now, maybe the prosecutors are building up to some amazing Perry Mason moment, but they need to get to it because, again, by reports in the courtroom, some people are a little bit sleepy. You can't be sleepy at a murder trial under cross-examination. That's a big problem.
This is the moment. All right, Laura Jarrett, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.